Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam
Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Enam Kanvandam Aravindadalayatacham Bhagavatam Samasitam Buddhasundarangam Kandar Agom Vikamaniya Vishesha Shobham
Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami
Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Andani Yasa Sakalen Priya Priti Manti Vasyanti Panti Kayanti Chiram Naganti Ananda Chinmaya Sadhu Jala Vigrahasya
Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami
Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam
For the pleasure of their Lordship, Shri Shri Radha Ballabha, Shri Shri Gauranitai, Lord Jagannath Baladev, Subhadra, Jagannath Baladev, Subhadra, Srila Prabhupada, all the assembled devotees, Sankirtan results for Thursday the 17th of March. Book distribution, Matsya, 4 small books, 1 medium book, 1 big book, 2 Maha big books, for 6.5 book points. Priyanka, 8 small books, 4 Maha big books, 10 book points. Vijay, 8 small books, 5 medium books, 5 big books, 1 Maha big book, 11.5 book points. Kartik, 13 small books, 4 medium books, 6 big books, 1 Maha big book, 13.25 book points. Hemant, 14 small books, 5 medium books, 5 big books, 2 Maha big books, 15 book points. And Vineet, 7 small books, 8 medium books, 3 big books, 4 Maha big books, 16.75 book points. That gave us a daily total of 54 small books, 23 medium books, 20 big books, 14 Maha big books, 73 book points. Radesh Chaiba, 84 guests, 1,013. Gopal, 174 guests, 2,095. And Crossways, 234 guests, 2,440. That gave us a daily total of 492 guests, 5,548. And collections, Matsya, 52. Priyanka, 94. Vijay, 100. Member services, 105. Kartik, 115. Hemant, 120. And Vineet, 220. That gave us a daily total of 806 and a running total for the week so far, 7,579. Sankirtan Jagya ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaura Bhakta Brinda ki jai. Maybe we could have a little bit of movement so that everybody can have a darshan. Please. The men, requests from the women. Please move. Jaya Prabhupada Jaya, Prabhupada Jaya, Prabhupada Jaya, Prabhupada. Jaya Prabhupada Jaya, Prabhupada Jaya, Prabhupada Jaya, Prabhupada. Prabhupada Jaya, Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Prabhupada Jaya, Jaya, Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakti Satma Kevala Bhakti Satma. Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakti Satma. Bando Muve Savadhana Mate Bando Muve Savadhana Mate. Yahara Prasade Bhai E Bhavatori Aja E Bhavatori
Yara prasade bhai bhavatore ya. Krishna prapti ho ya hoite Krishna prapti ho ya hoite Guru Mukha Padma Vaikya Chitete Koreya Guru Mukha Padma Vaikya Chitete Koreya Ya Chitete Koreya Arana Kori Ho Mane Asha Arana Kori Ho Mane Asha Shri Guru Charane Rate Se Uttama Gati Rate Uttama Gati Shri Guru Charane Rate Se Uttama Gati Aise Uttamagate Ye prasade pure sava asa sava sa Ye prasade pure sarva asa Chakudana dilo ye jamme jamme Prabhu se Chakudana dilo ye jamme jamme Prabhu se Vyagana ride prakashito Vyagyan Vide Prakashito Prema Bhaktiya Hoite Aveda Pinasayate Prema Bhaktiya Hoite Aveda Pinasayate Vede Gaya Haracharito Vede Gaya Haracharito Shri Guru Karuna Sindhu Adama Janara Bandhu Shri Guru Karuna Sindhu Adama Janara Bandhu Lokanata Lokera Jivana Lokanata Lokera Jivana Aha Prabhu Koro Doya Deho More Padachaya Aha Prabhu Koro Doya Deho More Padachaya Founder-Acharya. Lokanatha Lokara Jivana. Oops, sorry. Beyasha Gusukte Bhuvana. Beyasha Gusukte Bhuvana. Shri Guru Karuna Sindhu Adama Janara Bandhu. Shri Guru Karuna Sindhu Adama Janara Bandhu. Lokanatha Lokara Jivana. Lokanatha Lokara Jivana. Ha ha Prabhu Guru Doya Deho More Padachaya. Ha ha Prabhu Guru Doya Deho More Padachaya. Srila Prabhupada Patita Pavana. Srila Prabhupada Patita Pavana. Jaya Prabhupada. 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya 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 Prabhupada. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Śrīmate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namine. Bhutale Vedanta Swami Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Sunyavadi Pasyata Desha Tarine. Prabhupada Charine Sunyavadi Pasyata Desatarine. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Radha Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktivedanta. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita, Radha Shiva Sadhi, Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Shiva Sadhi, Gaura. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Radha Shiva Sadhi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Radha Shiva Sadhi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Gauranga Nityananda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Radha Shiva Sadhi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Radha Shiva Sadhi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Radha Shiva Sadhi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Radha Shiva Sadhi Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Gauranga. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Oh, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, oh, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Ouch. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Rama. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Follow. Hare. Rama Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Woo! Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Woo! Hey! Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Oh! Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Oh. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Oh. Nitai Gauranga, Nitai Gauranga, Nitai Gauranga, Nitai Gauranga, Nitai Gauranga, Gaura Hare, Nitai Gauranga, Gaura Hare. Nitai Gauranga, Gaura Hare, Gaura Gaura, Gaura Hare, Gaura Gaura, Gaura Hare, Nitai Gauranga Gaura Hare Gaura Nitai Gauranga Gaura Hare Nitai Gauranga Gaura Hare Nitai Gauranga Gaura Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Rama Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Rama Rama Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Rama Oh Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Oh Rama Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Rama Rama Nitai Gaura Haribo 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Jaya Prabhupada
Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parirajikacharya Ashto Tarasara Śrīmad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parirajikacharya Ashto Tarasara Śrīmad Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parirajikacharya Ashto Tarasati Śrīmad Srila Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Thakur Srila Prabhupada Ki Ananda Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Prem Se Gaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Sivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gop Gopinath Shyama Kunda Radha Kundi Giri Govardhana Ki Sri Vrindavan Dham Ki Sri Mayapur Navadvip Dham Ki Sri Purushottam Chitra Ki Sri Ganga Maya Ki Jai Sri Jamuna Maya Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Tulsi Devi Maharani Ki Jai Harinam Sankirtana Ki Jai Sri Sri Gaunitai Ki Jai Sri Sri Radha Ballabha Ki Jai Sri Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Devi Ki Jai Melbourne Mahaprabhu Mandira Ki Jai Oh, glories to the assembled devotees. Oh, glories to the assembled devotees. Oh, glories to the assembled devotees. Sri Gopuni Maha Utsava Ki Jai. Sri Gauranga Mahaprabhu Ki Jai. Nitai Gaura Premanande. Oh, God. Hey, wait. We can have kirtan later. Let's have class now. There's plenty of, and class is also kirtan. Prabhupada, so let's do the needful. We can have kirtan. There's the rest of the day for kirtan. All right? Hare Krishna. And I'm giving class, so I want to. And I've got other things to do today. Like chant Hare Krishna. So, Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Sri Gauranga Gopurnima Ki Jai.
good. Thank you. Who won? Hare Krishna. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Girivardhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Girivardhari Yasoda Nandana Praja Jana Ranjana Yasoda Nandana Praja Jana Ranjana Jamuna Tera Banachari Jamuna Tera Vanachari Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Madhava Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Vallabha Girivardhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Girivardhari Yasoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yasoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Jamuna Tera Vanachari Jamuna Tera Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. It's a 10th canto. It's a 10th canto. It's the 10th canto. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivajikacharya Asto Tarasatasi Śrīmad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada ki Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki Grantaraj Śrīmad Bhāgavatam ki Nitai Gora Premanandi Namo Mishvaraya Krishna Stabhadlaishmani Bhajam Prabhu Namo Mishvaraya Krishna Stabhadlaishmani Bhaktivedanta Swami Tanamne Namaste Saraswati Devi Garavani Pujana Namaste Sasanivali Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Vasudevaya. We're reading today from Śrīmad Bhāgavatam, Canto 10, the Summum Bonum, Chapter 2, Prayers by the Demigods, text number 16. Bhagavan api vishvatma bhaktanam abhayankaraha avivesham sabhagena mana anakadundubhe Bhagavan api vishvatma Bhaktanam abhayankaraha avivesham sabhagena mana anakadundubhe Bhagavan api visvatma Bhaktanam abhayankaraha avivesham sabhagena mana anakadundubhe Bhagavan api visvatma Bhaktanam abhayankaraha avivesham sabhagena mana anakadundubhe anapi visvatma avivesham sabhagena mana anakadundubhe avivesham sabhagena mana anakadundubhe Bhagavan api visvatma Bhaktanam abhayankaraha avivesham sabhagena mana anakadundubhe. Ladies, Bhagavan api visvatma Bhaktanam abhayankaraha avivesham sabhagena mana anakadundubhe Bhagavan api visvatma Bhaktanam abhayankaraha avivesham sabhagena mana anakadundubhe Bhagavan api visvatma Bhaktanam abhayankaraha avivesham sabhagena mana anakadundubhe. Bhagavan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, api, also, Vishvatma, the Super Soul of all living entities, Bhaktanam, of his devotees, Abhayam, Karaha, always killing the causes of fear, avivesha, entered amsabhagena, with all of his potential opulences. Shad Aishvarya Purna, Manaha, in the mind, Anakadundubhe, of Vasudeva. Thus the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the Supersoul of all living entities, and who vanquishes all the fear of his devotees, entered the mind of Vasudeva in full opulence. Purport. The word Vishvatma refers to one who is situated in everyone's heart. Ishvaraha Sarvabhutanam Hridesharjuna Tishtati. Another meaning of Vishvatma is the only lovable object for everyone. Because of forgetfulness of this object, people are suffering in this material world. But if one fortunately revives his old consciousness of loving Krishna and connects with Vishvatma, one becomes perfect. The Lord is described in the 3rd canto, 3-15, as follows. Paravaresho mahad amsa yukto hi ajjo pijato bhagavan. Although unborn, the Lord, the Master of everything, appears like a born child by entering the mind of a devotee. The Lord is already there within the mind, and consequently it is not astonishing for him to appear as if born from a devotee's body. The word avivesha signifies that the Lord appeared within the mind of Vasudeva. There was no need for a discharge of semen. That is the opinion of Sripad Sridhar Swami and Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. In the Vaishnava Toshani, Srila Sanatana Goswami says that consciousness was awakened. I might say that again. In the Vaishnava Toshani, Srila Sanatana Goswami says that consciousness was awakened within the mind of Vasudeva. Srila Viraraghava Acharya also says that Vasudeva was one of the demigods and that within his mind the Supreme Personality of Godhead appeared as an awakening of consciousness. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chakshurun Militam Jena Tasmaye Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kada Mahiyam Dadati Svapadantikam Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangam Langayate Garim Yat Kripa Tamaham Bande Sri Gurum Dinatarinam. So, Krishna has a plan. Krishna has a plan, Balaram. But what is the plan? What is the plan? Sometimes we can't see. Very often we can't see what Krishna's plan is. Just recently, and this is illustrated very keenly felt recently with the passing of a devotee, Srivas Pandit. Many of you probably haven't heard of Srivas Pandit, but he was the leader of the ISKCON community in Myanmar. And he was a deputy also. That's how I worked with him for the last probably 10 years, I suppose. Young, he would have been in his late 30s, and very dynamic preacher. Established, I don't know, a dozen temples in Myanmar, translating Prabhupada's books into Burmese, and publishing those books, distributing the books, and yet left his body on Tuesday, was it, or recently, a few days ago. He passed away as a consequence of cancer of the tongue. Would you believe? Tragedy, real tragedy. And he's a very humble devotee, actually. He'd been not well for a year or so. And his brother and sister, who live in Sydney, by the way. In fact, it's interesting. I was communicating with his father when his father was preaching in Samoa, when he was just coming to Krishna consciousness. His father was a doctor. I found out later on. But it was a real tragedy because here's a young man, brahmachari, potential a leader within ISKCON, certainly within his own community, and had the makings of a GBC, of a leader of our international community, but gone. So everybody's thinking, what's going on here? How did such a promising, how did a devotee such a committed devotee, so dedicated to Srila Prabhupada, he was a disciple of Gaur Govinda Maharaj, dedicated to serving Srila Prabhupada, worked cooperatively with everybody, was loved by everybody, and gone. What's Krishna's plan? So what is Krishna's plan? Anybody like to say? Yeah, good. I'm glad you said that. Yes. In this case, we don't know. We don't know. Krishna is, directing the wandering, as it's here, Ridesh Arjuna Tishtati, as the super soul is existing within everybody's heart. Right? And he's directing the wander, and we know where he's going. Right? We can tell where somebody has come from. But if we see devotees showing qualities of bhakti, of attachment to chanting Hare Krishna, attachment to serving, and detachment from material activities, then we know there must have been some bhakti in a previous lifetime. Prabhupada mentions in the Nectar of Devotion that, Rupa Goswami mentions, that bhakti is a cultivation over many lifetimes. And when a person is naturally attracted, Krishna mentions in the Bhagavad Gita, in the 6th chapter, how a devotee will take birth again in a family of either aristocracy or wealthy, or in a family of a devotee. Right? So Krishna does have a plan. It's just sometimes we can't see it. And we see here, in this verse is a description of how Krishna appeared, right? And it's also quoted by Srila Prabhupada in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, because it's exactly the same description as that which occurred for Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, right? Now, when Krishna appeared, he made sure that before his appearance, the demigods would take birth in Mathura and Vrindavan, so that his pastimes would be facilitated. Right? Krishna has a plan, and so therefore, in order to orchestrate or in order to facilitate his leela or his pastimes, he makes sure that first of all his devotees appear. Right? An interesting point here, and a point that's discussed in this section of the Bhagavatam, and also discussed by Krishnadas Kaviraj in the 13th chapter of the Chaitanya Charitamrita Adi Leela, that before his appearance, Lord Chaitanya made sure that his devotees were situated and living in Navadvip, so that when he appeared, then he'd be able to perform his pastimes with the devotees. Right? And in fact, we see in the appearance of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu how he made sure that Madhavendra Puri took birth, Ishvara Puri, his spiritual master, his family, his grandfather Nilambara Chakravarti, his father, I've forgotten. What's his father's name? What was... One person speak, because when 10 people speak, I hear nobody. Jagannath Mishra, yes. How could I forget? Well, quite easily, actually. Jagannath Mishra and Sachi Mata, right, appeared before Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his associates, who are the most prominent of Lord Chaitanya's associates. Yes, Nityananda. Who else? Advaita-Acharya, yes, importantly Advaita-Acharya. Who else? Haridas Thakur, yes. Huh? Murari Gupta, yes. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, the persons who are mentioned are Advaita-Acharya and Haridas, primarily. And so those devotees appeared before the appearance of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and under the leadership, because Madhavendra Puri and Ishvara Puri were somewhat outside of that group, but still appeared and had very important roles to play in the Leela of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So the devotees in Navadvip were at that time led by Advaita-Acharya, right? And Haridas. Very interesting, Haridas. We're discussing the Nectar of Devotion, and in the beginning of the Nectar of Devotion, because Haridas Thakur is a very interesting example. Haridas Thakur is an example of the universal principle taught by Lord Chaitanya. This is the Nectar of Devotion. You have to know your Nectar of Devotion. The preface, it's right in the beginning. What is the universal principle taught by Lord Chaitanya? And you can guess it if you like. What's the universal principle? Especially in relationship to Haridas Thakur. Araja. Chanting Hare Krishna? Yes, but no. That's a universal principle, but not the one I'm looking for. You have to have read the preface to the Nectar of Devotion recently to know this point. The universal principle taught by Lord Chaitanya, what is it? What do you think it might be? Speculate, just guess. Yes, close, warm, getting... Mahatmaji. No. That's okay. It's no wrong answers here. We're speculating on what the answer might be. Okay? No, it's not about chanting Hare Krishna. It's not about chanting Hare Krishna, although you know how to chant Hare Krishna if you're on this platform. What is it? Huh? Love, is it?
Yes, love.
Krishna loves everyone.
Yes, to show love.
Yes, he does. Yes? Okay, I'll tell you. That if you know the science of Krishna, right? Kiba Vipra, Kiba Nyasi, Sudrakeni Noy Ye Krishna Tattva Veta Se Guru Hoy. Right? If one is a Brahmana and he doesn't know Krishna, what's the good of his qualifications as a Brahmana? But if one knows the science of Krishna, of course that's what the nectar devotion is all about, right? Then one surpasses the position of a Brahmana, right? And this is what Haridas Thakur. Haridas Thakur is known as the Namacharya. He was born in a Muslim family, yet he's known as what? Namacharya. Haridas Thakur is the Namacharya. So, under the leadership of Advaita Acharya and Haridas Thakur, what did the residents of Navadvip do before Lord Chaitanya's appearance? What did they do? Chanting Hare Krishna, very good. Go to the top of the class. They chanted Hare Krishna. What else did they do? They bathed. They did bathe in the Ganga, although that's not mentioned in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. But it's understood that that's what they did. That's Advaita Acharya. That came later. What did they do? Chant Hare Krishna and study what? Śrīmad Bhāgavatam. Yes, which is what we do. Right? This is what devotees do. Right? This is what devotees have been doing time immemorial. Chanting Hare Krishna and studying the Śrīmad Bhāgavatam. And in that environment, Advaita Acharya was thinking, the people of this world are suffering. Right? This is the mood of a devotee. A devotee knows the heart of Krishna, right? And he knows what Krishna wants. And Krishna, as you mentioned nicely, Krishna wants all of the devotees to come back to him. Of course, you know, many of the living entities, and we included sometimes, are in bewilderment. They think, I'm going to get relief from suffering and anxiety by enjoying material pleasures, right? But this is described in the Nectar Devotion as what? Chapala Sukha, right? Flickering happiness. Right? So Advaita Acharya was thinking, how can we save the conditioned souls, the fallen souls in Kali Yuga, right? In this fallen age? And, you know, in this context, they're chanting Hare Krishna, they're studying the Bhagavatam, and thinking of the appearance of the Lord. Advaita Acharya came to the realization the only way that people can be released from this bondage is if Krishna himself comes. Nobody else can do it. Nobody else can do this. Prabhupada gives the example, just like, you know, the king comes to the prison house and pardons the rogues and thieves, right? So Advaita Acharya was thinking, the only way that people can be released from their suffering and attain their heartfelt desire, right, which is to be happy, to be liberated from material anxiety, the only way that can be done is if the Lord comes himself. And Prabhupada mentions, you know, actually it's interesting what Prabhupada mentions in a purport to that verse. He mentions that either the Lord comes himself or he sends his empowered representative. Right? So, and this is how we recognise Srila Prabhupada as the empowered representative of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared, but Prabhupada also appeared as the representative, as the empowered. I guess we could, we could say Shakti Avesh. Prabhupada was endowed with that potency to spread Krishna, the name of Krishna, all over the world. Right. So Advaita Acharya was thinking, the only way this can happen is if the Lord comes himself. Although Prabhupada, like I say, Prabhupada clarifies that the Lord or his empowered representative. So Advaita Acharya started to worship he was already, Prabhupada mentions, this is a symptom of the Brahmana culture in India, is that the Brahmanas worship what? Who do the Brahmanas worship? Starts with a S. Shalagram Shila. Yes, Shalagram Shila. And how did he worship the Shalagram Shila? And water. And what else? What else? Flowers. He must have, but it's not mentioned. Flowers are not mentioned. Huh? What do we worship? It was our Shalagram Pujaris. What do we worship the Shalagram with? Chandan. Yes. Go to the top of the class. Our Shalagram Pujari. Yes, it's mentioned. Prabhupada mentions water and tulsi, and Prabhupada says a little bit of chandan, right? And the Lord can be satisfied, right? So while Advaita Acharya was performing this puja, he was also calling out to the Lord for the success of your mission, for the success of your purpose. Krishna, you yourself have to descend in order for this, and Advaita Acharya understanding Krishna's mission and Krishna's purpose, and that is to, what is it? Paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya chaduskritam dharma samstapanataya sambhavami yuge yuge. To release the devotees, to protect the devotees, and to destroy the demoniac, and to establish religious principles. This is Krishna's purpose. So Advaita Acharya was beseeching, imploring, crying out to. In fact, there's that funny pastime. Where Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda go to Advaita Acharya's house for prasadam, right? And Lord Chaitanya is saying how he only wants a small amount of prasadam, and Advaita Acharya says we've only cooked a little bit. There's huge amounts of prasadam, and there's one interaction between Advaita Acharya and Lord Chaitanya, where Lord Chaitanya says words to the effect, I was sleeping peacefully. I was sleeping peacefully in Vaikuntha, in the Corona ocean, and you woke me up and brought me here. And he was, why aren't you serving me properly or whatever? Anyway, humorous exchange. So, by Advaita Acharya's fervent prayers, then the Lord agreed to appear, but of course he'd already arranged the circumstance where the devotees were already situated in their posts, if you like. And of course, his associates, his friends, and other associates would appear also at the same time in order to facilitate Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes and, of course, the fulfillment of his mission, which is to, what is it? What's Lord Chaitanya's mission? What do you think? What's Lord Chaitanya's mission? First mission. You got it right already. What is it, Araja? Chanting, yes. Chanting Hare Krishna, Hare Nama, Hare Nama, Hare Nama, Eva Kevalam, Kalo Nasyeva, Nasyeva, Nasyeva Gatir Anyata. So Lord Chaitanya's main purpose for appearing is to establish the chanting of Hare Krishna. And it's interesting, in the purport, in the purport, to the verse where the description of Advaita Acharya is worshipping the Shalagram Shila, Prabhupada mentions how there are devotees in ISKCON who are keen to worship the Shalagram Shila, right? And Prabhupada mentions the importance of deity worship, would you believe, right? So Lord Chaitanya appeared to establish the chanting of Hare Krishna. And even Prabhupada says, the chanting of Hare Krishna is more important than temple worship. Right? Prabhupada mentions this. But, Prabhupada mentions, 3rd canto and also in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, that in order, and this is important because we see in the appearance of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu the purity of the devotees that appeared before him, and also and especially the purity of Jagannath Mishra and Sachimata, right? And how, because they were such pure devotees, then the Lord was automatically manifest in their heart. Right? And when Lord Jagannath Mishra had a dream, and in his dream the Lord appeared within his heart, right? And Jagannath Mishra describes how wherever I go, people offer me gifts and people offer me praise, and they want to look after me, right? Because Krishna was manifest within the heart of Jagannath Mishra, because he's such a pure devotee. He's described as a Nitya Siddha devotee. Right? Now, all of us aspire to be, well, I'm assuming that all of us are aspiring to become pure-hearted devotees. Right? And how do we do that? What's our main process for becoming pure-hearted? Chanting. Yeah, chanting Hare Krishna. But Prabhupada makes the point, and we sometimes hear this philosophy, we don't need temples. Prabhupada said temples are not as important. All we need to do is go on Harinam. Have you heard this philosophy? Some of you have. If you haven't, you're hearing it from me now. Right? But I'm going to defeat it based on the Shastra. Because yes, chanting of Hare Krishna is important. You know, sometimes the devotees quote, you know, Prabhupada said you can shut the temple. You can shut the temple. Right, yes, Prabhupada did say you could shut the temple. But Prabhupada didn't say you could close the temple. Right? There weren't enough devotees to both look after the temple and go on Harinam. So Prabhupada said you can shut the temple. That doesn't mean close the temple. Everybody goes on Harinam, then come back and open up the temple. Right? But sometimes this is quoted. Prabhupada said you could shut the temple. Just go on Harinam. No. Certainly the chanting of Hare Krishna is important, and that's our main process, right? But why did Prabhupada put so much time and effort into establishing temples all over the world? Right? Even at the inconvenience, if you like, of his disciples. Right? Yeah, I'm not for the benefit of his disciples. But when you think about it, you know, Prabhupada established Radha Vallabha, Gaurnitai, Jagannath Balaram and Subhaja. When we didn't have, you know, we've got, I'm estimating 400 devotees chanting 16 rounds in this community. About right? You know how I worked this out? By the number of devotees that came to the Christmas picnic. Right? And so, you know, a quarter of those devotees were doing book distribution, which is that's pretty far out when you think about it. 130 devotees were doing book distribution, right? And so you know, we have a sizable community of devotees, and so why did Prabhupada put all of this emphasis on establishing temples? We've got 400 devotees, say, chanting 16 rounds now, and even still it's a struggle to keep the deity worship, you know, afloat all the time. Right? So what to speak of when Prabhupada established this temple, and it was a struggle. The devotees were going out on Harinam, they were getting thrown in jail, right? Because, well, you know why the devotees were getting put in jail? Why were the devotees getting put in jail? Huh? Parking tickets. Tickets, but not parking tickets. Because they were selling books, and it's illegal to sell books. Even now, it's illegal to go and sell books. When you, oh, I shouldn't tell this to the book distributors, they might get scared. But, you know, the devotees were known as beggars, you know, and they were collecting donations and whatever. And there were some devotees who couldn't go, they couldn't go on Harinam because the council inspectors knew who they were, right? And then they grabbed them on the Harinam and take them and put them in jail because it was because they hadn't paid fines for collecting donations. Right? So why did Prabhupada put so much effort into establishing temples, even in the early days of ISKCON? It was difficult to maintain. Why don't we just all go and chant Hare Krishna? Right? And the reason is because the deity worship is needed to purify the heart. It's that, and so that's why we have a regulated, you know, the temple is like our flagship, right? But these are the activities also that we should be doing at home. We can do a little bit of deity worship, keep it simple, right? Don't make it too complicated because it can become a burden very quickly. You've heard of the KISS principle, right? You know, what's the KISS principle? Huh? Sadhu. Yeah. Keep it simple, sadhu. Keep it simple. Otherwise you'll, you know, overburden yourselves. But, you know, why do we have temples? Temples are places where we can come together as a community. Prabhupada knew this. You know, the temple in an Indian village very often was the central focus of all of the activities of that location. Look at Tirupati as an example, but even Vrindavan, right? It focuses people's attention and it purifies. You know, Narada Muni, who's what would you say, one of the greatest exponents of what? What's Narada Muni one of the greatest exponents of? What's he known for? Narada Muni Bhajaya Veena. What's next? I can't sing that like Radhika Ramana Namine. Right? So what's Narada Muni doing with his Veena? Ooh. Did you give that key to Kundalata? Ooh. I should have turned my phone off. So what's he doing with his Veena? What's Narada Muni doing? He's playing his Veena, but what is he doing while he's playing his Veena? It's the same answer to the previous question and the answer that you gave for the first question. What is it? Chanting, yes, chanting Hare Krishna. Right? Yet, we also have the Narada Pancharatra. He also gives instructions on deity worship. Right? Because for neophytes, and Prabhupada says, we, unlike Jagannath Mishra and Sachi Mata, who are Siddha, Nitya Siddha, pure-hearted, right? We are, what are we? Well, I'm going to talk for myself. You're all Paramahamsas, right? But I'm a conditioned soul, right? With accumulated detritus in the heart, right? And so, for those beginning devotees, if you like, or intermediate devotees, devotees who are purifying themselves, chanting of Hare Krishna is, you know, Kalo nasjeva, nasjeva, nasjeva. There is no other way, there's no other way, there's no other way, but it's also facilitated by deity worship. And so that's why we're all encouraged, you know, to get our Brahman initiation and to worship the deity. Right? Because by worshipping the deity, first of all, we're regulated. Right? We're regulated. We're also initiated into the Brahma Gayatri mantra, the Gayatri mantras, which are also very powerful, purifying mantras. Right? And again, coming back to this point, you know, the point about Haridas Thakur, even Advaita-Acharya, well, Advaita-Acharya is an incarnation of Krishna, so not perhaps the same, but the book distribution, the Harinam, the chanting of Hare Krishna, this is the Bhagavat Vidhi. And then the deity worship is known as the Pancharatra Vidhi or the Pancharatrika Vidhi. Come on, go away. I should have switched this off, but I will. Can you go and see Kundalata and find out what she wants? Chaitanya Leela? She may be at that place. Give her a call and find out what the problem is. And tell her I switched off my watch. Sorry. Yeah, so whilst the chanting of Hare Krishna is our primary practice, we still need the deity worship for that purification of those impressions from our past material activities. This is why we have these. This is why I have the deity worship. Why it's so important that we don't discard the deity worship. So Advaita Acharya, so Prabhupada mentions that there are people who want to introduce, there are devotees who are keen to start worshipping the Shalagram Shila. But Prabhupada says, we will introduce it when we see that the devotees are steady in their Brahman qualities. Right? We need to see that there's that steadiness, because that's also a quality of a Brahmana, right? Samo damas tapaso cham chanti rajavameva cha. They live a very simple life, a very steady life, a very regulated lifestyle. This is the lifestyle of a Brahmana. And a lot of that revolves around the deity worship. Right? And so Prabhupada says, we'll introduce the worship of the Shalagram Shila. And of course, we're now worshipping the Shalagram Shila in Melbourne. Although it's very interesting, in Los Angeles, Svavas, who's the TP, won't worship the Shalagram Shila. And his reason is Prabhupada didn't introduce it here. Right? And Los Angeles used to be the headquarters of ISKCON, right? That was the headquarters. Now we kind of don't see Los Angeles as a headquarters. And the devotees were sent from here to Los Angeles to be trained in deity worship. A number of the ladies, it was arranged for them to go to Los Angeles, because that's where Prabhupada first established the deity worship. Elaborate worship of Radha and Krishna, Jagannath, Gaunitai, and that's where our current standards come from. So, Jagannath Mishra was a Siddha, Nitya Siddha devotee. And so the Lord appeared naturally, and it's mentioned here, the Lord is in everybody's heart, right? Krishna is in everybody's heart. But, okay, how many here are seeing Krishna in their heart? Please raise your hands. What's wrong with you? What's wrong with us? Right? We know Krishna's in our heart. But how many of us are communing with Krishna and actually see Krishna within the heart? Right? And then compare us with a devotee like Jagannath Mishra. Jagannath Mishra dreamt that the Lord was in his heart. He could see the Lord within his heart. And so could the other residents of Navadvip, because when they saw Jagannath Mishra, they were, in the glove box. In the glove box. Yeah, I should have realised. I've got lock nuts on my wheels. Okay, yeah, you're right. I'm going to tell everybody where my nut. It's in the dashboard on the right-hand side, just up underneath. There's a big blue lump of blue tack, and it's in the blue tack. Yeah. I'm going to put it somewhere else now. But I'll tell you why. A few years ago, it was a few years ago, it'd be 7 years ago, we just bought, this was a new car, and a Chincharipa came out, it was Saturday morning, a Chincharipa at 4 o'clock in the morning came out to go to the market, and she noticed that the car was on its side, right? And when she got to the car, she realised what was wrong. 2 of the wheels had been pinched, right? And she must have disturbed them, because usually what they do is they tip it over the other way and take the other 2 wheels, because, 4 wheels, what are you going to do with 2 wheels? Not a lot. And I did decide, usually I would put, because when I was living in Dank Street, next door neighbour had all of his wheels stolen. Right? He had a brand new SS Commodore, right? We all came up, we're all looking at it, he's going, oh, look at that. So I stuck, lock nuts on my wheels. But then when I bought the car that I've got now, I thought, she'll be right, this doesn't happen anymore. And lo and behold, 2 wheels stolen. So my advice, if you've got a new car and you live in Albert Park, put lock nuts on your wheels, because if it's a desirable car. And there are young boys that go around the neighbourhood and just try out opening up car doors, right? Because the wealthy people of Albert Park, they just don't lock their cars, right? And they find wallets and Ray-Ban sunglasses and whatever. So anyway, we were distracted from the main point, which is pure devotees, right? Pure devotees. So Jagannath Mishra and Sachi Mata were so pure-hearted that the Lord appeared within their heart. The Lord appeared in Jagannath Mishra's heart, and then from Jagannath Mishra's heart, he was transferred to the heart of Sachi Mata, right? And which is why we're quoting this verse, because that's exactly what took place in Krishna Leela, right? The Lord appeared in the heart of Vasudeva, and then from Vasudeva he was then transferred into the heart of Devaki, and then from Devaki's womb, because she appeared, and Sachimata also appeared to be carrying Lord Chaitanya, but then when he was born he appeared as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Now, what happened when Lord Chaitanya... when Sachimata became aware, or when they became aware that Sachimata was carrying, was expecting, shall we say, Jagannath Mishra and Sachimata had 8 daughters, right? 8 daughters, and they all didn't survive, right? Huh? Oh, I don't know about that. But, yeah, I wasn't going to say that, but that's probably what happened. Right? So, otherwise, yeah. So, very distressing, extremely distressing. Can you imagine? Having 8 children and none of them surviving. Could you imagine the distress? Right? Very distressful. So what did Jagannath Mishra do? Who did he worship? He worshipped Lord Vishnu. We could assume he was also worshipping the Shalagram Shila. He was from a Brahmin family, right? So he was... And so very diligently he served the Shalagram Shila, and then Sachimata was expecting. And who was born? Who was born first? Yes. Who said that? Abai. Go to the top of the class, Abai. Vishvarupa. Right? And Vishvarupa was an expansion of Sankarshan. In fact, when he took sannyas, his name was Shankararanya, right? So, and it's very interesting when Vishvarupa, when Sachimata and Jagannath Mishra were arranging for his wedding, what did he do? Left home. Left home. And eventually took sannyas, was given the name Shankararanya, And interestingly, he left his body in Pandharpur. Right, mentions there in Pandharpur. Anybody here been to Pandharpur? Pandharpur, amazing place. When you go to Pandharpur, it's like being in Vrindavan. Really, like, it's powerful, really powerful place. And you can see Vital and Rukmini, isn't it? Vital and yeah, it's quite. And you know, on Ekadasi, thousands and thousands of pilgrims go to see Vital and Rukmini, and it's interesting. In that place, that you know, they have a queuing system. The Indian temples have, you know, these old temples, they have queuing systems because they get thousands of people, so they've got to line them up. So outside the temple, they've got this big stand. So you walk up the stairs and then you walk back down again. That's one of the ways that they manage the crowd. Their crowd control is get people to walk up and then walk down. And that way they line up. And I remember seeing an interesting thing in Pandharpur. The people go there and then they jump up and down in front of the deities like this. Ooh, that's odd. You know, if you're not used to that. You know, another thing that I found odd in India was the celebration of Holi, right? And the first time I went to Mayapur, you know, on Gaur Purnima Day, I was confronted by these pink, green and purple men, right? I thought, what are these people doing? You know, they said, well, don't go out because you'll get sprayed. You know, I was so fearful. Because to me, it was like, you know, I don't want to walk around pink, green and purple. But these people, obviously, they were enjoying, you know, walking around being pink, green and purple. But for me, it was such a, you know, my first visit to India was such a culture shock. It was so... We got off the plane in Madras, and we went on a bus to Mahabalipuram, which was a great resort. You know, we woke up in the morning and all the devotees were out in the surfs, you know, body surfing. They were having a great time. And I was thinking, well, what's all this Maya? You know, I was a rah-rah brahmachari at that point in my career. And but the thing that really shocked me was driving through the streets of Chennai, and there were hundreds of people sleeping on the footpath. I kid you not. You've probably seen it in Calcutta or wherever, in the big city. And I thought, you know, because, you know, for us, where you sleep is your bedroom. And that's kind of like your inner sanctum, right? And I was thinking, these people's bedroom is on the sidewalk. Where do they live? Right? And that meant they didn't have a home. Right, if you're sleeping on a sidewalk, what does that mean? If you're sleeping on a sidewalk, what does that mean? Huh? Go home. No home. Yeah, no home. It was such a shock for me that, you know, I'd been brought up in a very middle class upbringing, and to see people sleeping on the street, it was like, oh wow, this is heavy. You know, India is a heavy place. So, but anyway, yeah, Gaurpurn, a heavy place, and also on Holi, pink, green, purple men destroying their clothes. You know, so I was in fear. I was a brahmachari. I only had 2 kurtas and 2 dhotis. So I thought, I'm not going out there. I want to keep my dhoti and kurta saffron, not purple, pink and green. So anyway, Lord Chaitanya was... okay, so Vishvarupa was born, and then he eventually left home, and then Lord Chaitanya was expected, shall we say. And Lord Chaitanya was in his mother's womb for 13 months. Right? And Prabhupada mentions that a child generally is born after 10 months, right? So could you imagine the mothers here? How would you like to have a child for 13 months? Ooh, you'd be in a bit of anxiety, right? You're in anxiety with 9 months. Or like just recently Kumudavan's Nidivan had a Caesar because the child was overdue by a month, right? Oof. So Lord Chaitanya and, Jagannath Mishra was concerned, when will my child be born? And so Nilambara Chakravarti, Lord Jagannath Mishra's father, checked the checked the almanac, I guess, the equivalent of the almanac. And then he noticed that there was a full moon coming, right? And of course, a full moon with an eclipse. Right? Sometimes what happens in ISKCON, there's a lunar eclipse and they ring me up, Prabhu, there's an eclipse, what do we do? What do we do? Right? I said, chant Hare Krishna. Well, that's what you do. We chant Hare Krishna. When I joined ISKCON in Prabhupada's day earlier in ISKCON, this whole notion that there was an eclipse and it's inauspicious and you can't eat anything and you can't sleep and you can't go outside and anything that's touched by the moon's rays is contaminated. We never heard of it. We never heard of it. Prabhupada, you look in Prabhupada's books, you won't find it mentioned anywhere. Right? But what's the tradition? Of course, it is considered to be, inauspicious. And so what does Prabhupada explains? What were the devotees doing? What were the Hindus doing at the time of the lunar eclipse, which was calculated by Nilambara Chakrabarti as being the auspicious time when Lord Chaitanya would appear, but traditionally would also be considered inauspicious, right? So what were they doing? What were they doing? They were chanting, they were in the Ganga, right? Who said they were taking bath in the Ganga? Somebody, yeah. They were, especially on the eclipse. And they were in the Ganga, and what were they doing? Chanting Hare Krishna, right? So that's why it's the most auspicious, right? Because even though it was inauspicious, and of course Kali Yuga is considered to be an ocean of inauspiciousness, right? An ocean of inauspiciousness. But what's its good quality, right? The chanting of Hare Krishna. So when Lord Chaitanya appeared, he appeared amidst all of this holy name, right? In the midst, and even it's mentioned in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, not only were the Hindus chanting Hare Krishna, but so were the Muslims, right? Imitating and somewhat mocking the Hindus, right? We get that sometimes when we go on Harinam. Not so much these days. We used to get it a lot, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama. Right? Huh? Do we get that? Not so much, but we do. You get people chant in a imitating fashion, right? They don't know what they're doing, and they're making fun of the devotees, but the devotees just are smiling. Right? Just like, there was a devotee called Giridhari Rupa, Prabhupada disciple, and he used to work in the city, in Sydney, and he worked in a fruit and veg shop. And when the devotees used to come along, he used to throw rotten vegetables and fruit at the devotees. And of course, eventually he became a devotee. So the devotees don't mind. If they're getting paid attention to, even by the demons, they're just laughing because sooner or later they're chanting Hare Krishna, they're going to be purified. Right? So Lord Chaitanya's appearance, even though it was in a lunar eclipse, because there was the chanting of Hare Krishna And Nilambara Chakravarti, because he was such an expert astrologer, he could see. Even though, and of course it was a worry that Lord Chaitanya is in the womb of his mother for 11 months, or how many of it was. It was certainly after the time that he should have been born, but he could see that Lord Chaitanya would appear in this auspicious circumstance. And of course, that then herald the purpose of his mission. The purpose of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mission is to establish the chanting of Hare Krishna all over the world. And of course, that was also Srila Prabhupada's mission. Srila Prabhupada, being empowered by Lord Chaitanya, was able to fulfill the purpose of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mission and fulfill the prediction by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that the chanting of Hare Krishna would be heard in every town and village. So we are very fortunate to remember the pastimes of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his Adi Leela, if you like, his appearance. And we can meditate on the mission of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, that is to distribute the holy name far and wide, to give it to everybody. Right? But to also remember the context in which we do that. We do that as a preaching community. We do that as a cooperative effort. And, you know, even though Prabhupada said you can shut the temple, right? You can shut the temple, but of course he didn't mean close the temple. You can shut the temple to go on Harinam, but still temples are super important for us. And it's within that context of establishing a preaching community, a community of devotees that comes together to glorify Lord Chaitanya through the chanting of Hare Krishna, but also come together to worship Gaunitai, Radha Ballabha, Jagannath Balaram, Subhadra. There's a potency in that activity. There's purification in that activity. There's focus. Right? There's focus. And that's why Srila Prabhupada put so much effort and attention into establishing, well, getting us all to chant Hare Krishna, but also establishing temples. Right? Because it's like our base. It's like, you know, it's the foundation from which we then launch our efforts to influence and to purify others, to make devotees. And you know, it's very practical. If we go out and chant Hare Krishna, which is what we're supposed to do, and if we go out and distribute books, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? If we give books to people, what does happen? We give books to people, we chant Hare Krishna, which is our Sankirtan activity. What happens? They do, yes, but what do they do? Loudly. Oh, what's that? Yes, they get attracted, and so what do? What happens? Huh? Yes, they want to, thank you. They want to go somewhere. Where do I meet you people? Right? Where do I meet you? How can I find out more? Right? And that's where we have the temple. Right? And you know, what's a byproduct of deity worship? Have you noticed? What's a byproduct of deity worship? Yes, Nrikeshri knows. He's been away from Melbourne. Have you noticed how he's lost weight? Right? He told my wife they need to feed me properly. I won't say where, but and why do we? Well, one of the reasons why we distribute. What's one of the reasons why we distribute prasadam? One of the reasons why we make prasadam so delicious, right? Well, so Krishna can enjoy it, right? This is the main purpose. In one sense, the main purpose is to make sure that Krishna is happy, right? But also, when we distribute the prasadam, then after honouring the prasadam, the partakers can't forget it, right? Like at the moment, there's the Achincharipa started cooking the milk sweets, and there's queues to eat the milk sweets, right? She's cooking milk sweets that we used to cook in the 80s that haven't been seen or heard of around here for decades, right? And in fact, one devotee told me, I keep on thinking about the burfi. And I remember the first time I went to the temple, you know, I was a vegetarian, and I knew that, you know, that offering food was special, because the first book that I got was a cookbook, right? Cookbook. And in the cookbook, in the beginning, it says when you're cooking, you should meditate on offering to Krishna. It tells you, and you know, how to do the offering and stuff, right? So it was a Raj Bhog, and I was just enjoying the prasadam like anything. And there was a tomato chutney, right? You know the Bengali tomato chutney? Prabhupada says, what does Prabhupada call it? He says, too hot to taste, but too sweet to resist. This is that hot. They serve it hot in Mayapur, the tomato chutney, and it's super sweet, and it spills all over the place, right? Goes through the cracks in your leaf plate and onto the floor, if you get enough. But, you know, when I went away from the temple, I was thinking, boy, I got to go back to that place. I want to have that tomato chutney again. Right? So, you know, yes, we chant Hare Krishna. There's no doubt about it. The chanting of Hare Krishna is super important. But we don't neglect the worship of the deity, and we don't neglect the maintenance of the temple, because that's like our base, you know. And in that environment, or why we worship the deity at home, right? Because we need that as a basic or a foundational purification of our consciousness, so that when we're chanting Hare Krishna, it gives us the desired effect, where Krishna will automatically manifest within our hearts. We see in the example of the Nitya Siddha devotees, Krishna naturally manifests, right? And that's what we want. We go through so much effort to chant our rounds and to worship the deity. And why do we do that? So that Krishna will naturally manifest, right? And it's mentioned, you know, Krishna will only manifest in the heart of a pure devotee. That's what Vasudeva and Devaki and Jagannath Mishra and Sachidev are emblems of that pure devotee. And of course, they're the devotees that we aspire to be as well. And yes, we do that by chanting Hare Krishna. And we preach the chanting of Hare Krishna. But, you know, and even though Prabhupada does say, you know, temple worship is not as important, right? Still, we know how much effort Prabhupada put into. And there's a good reason for that, because that's that worship of the deity, you know, that regulated lifestyle, which comes with worshipping the Archa Vigraha. You know, it's Krishna incarnate before us, right? and should be honoured and respected. It's there. That's also part of the practice of chanting Hare Krishna, as recommended by Srila Prabhupada, by Rupa Goswami, by Narada Muni. Right? Narada Muni is he's famous for chanting. In fact, on the strength of his chanting, he can go anywhere, right? Who wouldn't mind being able to chant Hare Krishna so potently that wherever you wanted to go, you were just able to go there, right? Don't have to worry about visas and passports and, queuing up to get into a tin can, right? But even Narada Muni, with that Shakti, with that potency, he also gives instructions on how to worship the deity for the devotees. Okay, so we're greatly fortunate and value what Srila Prabhupada has given us. He's given us the holy name. Empowered by Lord Chaitanya, he's given us the holy name. But he's also given us the whole, as described by Rupa Goswami, and as given in the 9 items of devotional service, right? He's also given us the, Pujanam. Puja, right? Sravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam, Vandanam, Dasyam. What's the term, the Sanskrit term for the puja? Archanam. Yes, Archanam. Yeah. It's part of the whole process of bhakti. Begins with hearing and chanting, but the worship of the deity is all part of it. So, we shouldn't think, I'm just a Sankirtan devotee. Rah, rah, rah. I don't have to do that, because what happens is the Sankirtan devotees, we used to see this, the Sankirtan devotees go out all week without the deity worship and they come back like a bunch of cowboys, right? And lose their gentility, right? But with the deity worship and the temple environment and the atmosphere, then they become gentlemen again. Ladies and gentlemen. So it's important. This is important. Okay, thank you everybody. Anybody have any comments or questions on any of these points? Yes, exactly. Yeah, that's right. You worship the deity, then you get the feeling that Krishna is a person. Very much so. Very much so. That's what it's all about. Yes. And also, when you're dealing with people or with persons, you have to be considerate, right? You have to be considerate. You have to think of others. You're trained to think of somebody else, not just yourself. Right? Yeah. I was talking to a Chincharupa the other day, and we were just talking about culture, right? And she was telling me that in Aboriginal culture, they don't celebrate birthdays, right? Because, for me, the focal point of life was your birthday. Because, everybody says, oh, you're such a wonderful fellow. Right? Happy birthday to you. And they give you stuff. And I thought, okay. And you see it. When's your next birthday? Oh, it's 12 months away. Oh. Right? And the kids will tell you, my birthday's on the 23rd of April this year, just to remind you, right? So we focus on ourselves, right? Focus on ourselves. So it's quite egocentric. But it's very different in the Aboriginal culture. And so what happens, I know this, and I avoid doing this, I don't ask a Chincharupa for things, because if I ask, I'm telling a lie. I do sometimes ask for things, but I don't ask for her specifically, because she'll just give it. And it's part of the culture. If somebody asks you for something, you just give it. Very personal. And that's why worshipping the deity is designed to bring out that personal consideration of Krishna. What does Krishna want? What is Krishna like? How does he... And that's manifest in, today we've got a new set of clothes, right? And look at the decorations. We should thank Jai Radha and, numerous devotees for all of the garlands that they've made, all of the beautiful vases that they've made, and especially these peacocks. Are these peacocks brand new? They must be. We don't repeat, do we? We don't recycle. No, we're not into recycling. So everything is fresh, and look at the altar for Srila Prabhupada, but especially these yellow vases, just stunningly beautiful, right? So we pay attention to what Krishna likes as a person. And that also teaches us to pay attention to what others like, what everybody else likes. We start thinking about our parents, most of you come from a culture where you do think about your parents. But I have to admit that I thought my parents were there to serve me. My mother did tell me that I was spoiled. But the deity worship teaches us to focus on Krishna and to focus on Krishna's needs. And so this whole notion of bhakti, and bhakti rasa is on pleasing Krishna. And of course, then we all know, there's no higher taste actually in life than serving Krishna, right? We get pleasure out of serving mum and dad, we get pleasure out of serving our wives and our husbands and our kids, but it doesn't take long for it to sour, right? The kids will say, I didn't ask to be born, why are you picking on me? You say you love me, but why don't you do what I want? Right? And other disasters in life, right? But serving Krishna, even though it might be difficult, or even though it might be a grind, some days it's just a grind, right? Have you ever noticed that? You wake up, you start chanting Hare Krishna, and it says in the Shikshastakam, Anandam Buddhi Vardhanam Purnam Ritas Vardhanam, is the perfection of pleasure, right? Amrita. The chanting of Hare Krishna is supposed to be nectar, but we get up in the morning and it's like chewing cardboard, right? And it's just it's not difficult. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. But it just feels so hard, right? Yeah. So, but even that, we finish our 16 rounds and we think, ooh, wow, that was interesting. But you feel so satisfied, right? So service to Krishna is just it is Amrita. We're just in a jaundiced state where our, Prabhupada explains, Rupa Goswami explains that chanting of Hare Krishna is naturally sweet, but because we're attacked, our tongue is attacked with the jaundice of ignorance, then it tastes bitter. So the worship of the deity, the worship of Krishna is, that's really the most satisfying thing. And it broadens our perspective on service, actually. You know, Prabhupada says at the beginning of the Nectar of Devotion how our consciousness expands. And when it expands to serving Krishna, what Prabhupada says, it's the switch that turns on the light, right, of everything. Right? So we see everything in the proper perspective. Okay, I'm going to finish here. Grantaraj Śrīmad Bhāgavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Sri Gauranga Mahaprabhu ki jai. Sri Gaur Purnima ki jai. Nitai Gaura Premanandi. Hare Krishna.